welcome back to the verdict. Before we do any other thing, I understand that Chris Buffett, who was trying to talk to us from Uyo, is back on the line now, and I think we can go to him right away. Chris, what's up? Can you hear me? What's the situation there in Uyo this evening?
Okay. Like I said before, we were interrupted. The situation is calm here. Everything is fine here. All through the day, from morning till now, everything has been fine, except that, you know, in normal cases, when we have elections in the country, we have pockets of hitches here and there. But generally, the election was peaceful, orderly, everywhere we went throughout the day. And I have some residents here who also voted and who also monitored the elections. One of them here is Michael James. He's a resident of Uyo. Let him tell him, he's going to tell us what he experienced today.
Hello, good evening, good evening, Nigeria, all over the world. Actually, today was general elections. We go out to elect the next governor and our next House of Assembly members. I want to say that today election has been quite very peaceful. And I also want to say kudos to the INEC official who reported to the polling unit as at about 7:45 this morning, and as at 8 a.m. this morning, accreditation and voting commenced. And so far so good in my unit. I didn't face any problem at all. And then as at exact 2 p.m., the voting had stopped and then counting commenced. And then everything just went very, very fine. And I want to believe that, because though you said some pockets of itches there and there, but I don't believe Uyo, where I reside, have happened to hear anything at all.
Now, this is given the backdrop of the threats and pronouncements that we had before elections. Would you say that it's a total departure, or what did you expect before the election?
You know, even the Bible says that man proposed, God disposed. Actually, I want to believe that the outcome of elections today by God has been, God actually foresees peace throughout. And then maybe political parties actually hit up the system. They fishes that there's going to be some pockets of violence. Just like what happened, we had some talks who was brought in by some certain political parties into the state. We had them, and I want to say kudos to the police and Nigerian police. Yeah, but I just have I think the Nigerian police at some point agreed that they had some talks who were brought in to Benin, Edo State, and then they were apprehended by the Nigerian police. Some in Oborokara, we had some in Uyo, and then Kanafun, some. But I want to believe that the Nigerian police took care of that situation, and Akwa Ibom people went out and then voted en masse. And then, like I said, so far so good. I think I've not been able to hear any problem yet.
Let's compare this election to the presidential and National Assembly elections that took place here too. The National Assembly elections started quite late at most centers. How was today?
That is why I said I have to give kudos to INEC, because from the national presidential election that was held 2 weeks ago and today's governorship and House of Assembly election, there have been an improvement in terms of the time and then when the voting commences, and then when it finishes. You know, as at like 9, 10 o'clock in the presidential and national assembly election, as at 9, 10 o'clock, within the INEC officials, some INEC officials were nowhere to be found. You know, but I want to believe that INEC sat back and then saw and then look at some problems they had, and then needed to improve in this governorship and House of Assembly election.
I'm afraid we have to get back to Lagos.
It's okay.
Back to you in Lagos.
All right.
Back to you in Lagos.
Thank you very much, Chris Moffat, reporting from Uyo in Akwa Ibom State. On the late, his guest there, who is a resident of Uyo, talking about how peaceful it was and how smooth the process was this time as opposed to the last time, and giving kudos both to INEC and the police. So, yeah, back in the studios.
Yes, but back in Lagos. But let's take a trip back to Abuja. Dr. Abba, when you were talking, you mentioned some of the things that, some of the information you got at the CCD Situation Room. But these things that you mentioned, they are somewhat recurring through our election periods in this country. Is it that there is no solution or no end to them?
That's a difficult question to answer. Yes, they are recurring, but what we're finding is that some of them are recurring with new manifestations. And so yes, like I said, we're used to ballot box snatching, people stuffing ballot boxes and writing results in hotel rooms. That is no longer happening. What we're now getting is people destroying votes that have already been cast by burning ballot boxes. So that's a deviation from what we were used to before. We also have had, I think, something like a 15% increase in the number of eligible voters, something like 84 million voters compared to about the late 60s in the last election. I think the incidence of vote buying really became prevalent over the last couple of years or so. And in a perverse way, it's a suggestion that our votes are beginning to count, because if the votes were not counting, there will be no need for the politicians to pay for the votes. They will just sit in a hotel and write them. And so, just like people ask me generally about reforms, these things tend to be a continuous improvement process. As you improve one, other challenges will manifest, which you then need to design how to checkmate again until you get to a level where there's no longer the incentive to do these sorts of things. So at the time we get to a level where our voting is mostly electronic, our voting is mostly digital, we have electronic voting, we have diaspora voting, then it starts to reduce the need for some of this thuggery that we see. But it's an evolving process. Our current democracy is 20 years old. I think if you look at the overall trajectory from where we've come from, we've actually continued to make progress and improve with every single election that we've had. Of course, the 2003 elections were recognized as perhaps the worst in our history. But since then, I think we've continued to make progress. There's still, of course, a lot more to do. We need to get a lot better at logistics planning. I think I was quite upset with the postponement of the presidential elections the last time, and I made a comment like, we prepare for elections as if we have 4 days to prepare for them instead of 4 years, because these things are actually quite a huge logistical challenge. I think many people underestimate how big a logistical challenge it is, which is why we must always start to plan early. We must plan for contingencies. We must have remedial actions in place. And so given our environment, we should expect that there, at least having had the presidential elections 2 weeks ago, we should expect that there will be some attempts to burn some INEC offices. We should expect that there will be some attempts at vote buying. But you'll also see that because of what happened in the presidential elections, the EFCC made a number of arrests today. So, like I said, these things continue to happen. We continue, or the institutions continue to find ways to checkmate those things and to improve until such a time that there's no longer a need, there's no longer the incentive to do those things. People then realize that those election violences don't actually produce any results. And that's when you stop.
Okay, Dr. Abba, let me take a trip away from you. We'll come back to you definitely. And move over to Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital. We have our correspondent there, Dare Do, who should be at the Collation Center. Yeah, that's Dare. Hey, Dare, so tell us what's happening now. We know you've moved over now to the Collation Center. So what's happening?
Yeah, thank you, Joma. I was going to talk about that because the last time we spoke, I was actually outside and it was quite dark, but we're back inside now where it's properly lit and you can clearly see my face right now. But of course, that is not the gist. The gist is the fact that in a couple of hours, these all seats will be filled up with observers, journalists, and also representatives of political parties, and that is where the action is going to be happening. Earlier, we spoke with the Resident Electoral Commissioner, who seemed quite confident about the entire process in Ogun State. He said everything went according to plan. Right now, we're going to take it a notch higher by talking to an observer who, of course, will be giving us a different perspective, or maybe a similar perspective, depending on what she saw. And we're now being joined by Dr. Akiode Afolabi. Thank you very much, Ma, for joining us on the program. We spoke with the Resident Electoral Commissioner earlier, and he seemed quite confident about the process. What do you think? What were the things that you observed on the field?
Well, it's been very peaceful in Ogun State today. If you compare it to what happened some 2 weeks ago, we were in the polling units right from very early in the morning. So most of the polling units started on time. They arrived in the polling station on time. The materials were also there in most of the polling units. We had very few cases of card reader malfunctioning. In places where we had it, they had the problem of not clearing the information, that were on the card readers some weeks ago. So, but by and large, in terms of turnout, in the morning, it's quite comparative. In some places, there were a huge turnout. In some places, but generally, I think one would say that the turnout was generally low, and that's a source of concern for us.
Of course, let me quickly just go off this a little bit. If you look at the background, you can even see men of the EFCC. But, okay, let's go to this particular question. One of the major problems in the past elections, even the staggered elections conducted last year, was vote buying. Did you see anything of such in this election?
Well, we had reports. We had reports of vote buying from quite a number of the observers in almost everywhere around the state, and we're also aware that some people were arrested, for vote buying. I think there was a lot of inducement, in this election, and it's also one major thing that we're very concerned about as transition monitoring group.
If you can tell us specifically the areas you covered in this election, or maybe some of the regions that you traveled to in Ogun State.
Well, we had 235 observers across the state, and they are covering all the wards and we also have 20 local government observers. So meaning that we have about 250 people across the entire state. So we actually covered all the wards in the state, and we have reports from everywhere. We have gotten a report from Ogiri this evening that there was some kind of pockets of violence in some of the polling units, collation center. We have also had some reports from places like Odeda earlier on in the day, and one or two other places. But by and large, generally, we really didn't see, Ogun State was seen as a flashpoint, and we're all apprehensive of what the turnaround will be today. But good enough, there seems to be some kind of comparative peace, around the state.
So let's talk about those collection centers before they get here. In my interview with the REC, I raised that because I've heard from people talking about some kind of malpractices going on in the collection center. Do you notice this? Do you think this is a major challenge in our electoral process?
Well, for a while it's been. In the last election, it was quite prevalent. There were situations where electoral officials were being compelled, to announce results, against their will and all of that. We do hope that this time around we would not see that kind of thing. We have observers in all the ward, and we have also had situations where observers were being asked to leave the collation center. And of course, when such happens, it becomes, a thing of concern, a thing of suspicion. Why you would not want an observer to be in the collation center when counting is being done. So we had the INEC chair had assured everyone that the collation center will be secured and that they will not tolerate any form of harassment or assault, against the electoral officials. So we do hope that that will be done. Presently, they are at ward level. From ward level, they will move to the collation center. We had some of our friends who were in the collation center, who were professors who were working there, who also expressed fear. Some of them that were in some very Aitoro the other time, they didn't want to go back there because of what happened to them. So I think the security of the election official is also very important, going on in this, especially with this state that we are in at this level of the election, because everything now is going to the ward and from the ward to the collation center. If we don't secure the ward, if we don't secure the local government, there's no way we will have a credible election. So I think we are really where we need to pay more attention, to the process of the election.
So let's talk about what is going to happen in a couple of hours. What are your expectations, of course?
Well, the results are gradually coming out, and people have moved from the polling units, to the ward level. We expect that at the ward levels, after the results have been collated, they will move it to the local government. Then we will expect to see them at the state level. I am not sure whether they will be able to get to the state, until midnight. If at all they will be able to get there today, but I could see between now and 12 noon tomorrow, we should be able to know the winner of the current election.
Thank you very much, Dr. Afolabi Akiode. And of course, you've heard from Dr. Afolabi Akiode, who is an election observer. She said our monitoring group has members from across the world in Ogun State, and they've been covering the election, and they got results, some of them good, some of them not so good. But of course, we're still keeping tabs on developments in the state. From Abeokuta, where we are right now, where a whole lot of actions will be happening, we can tell you the entire city, of course, of Abeokuta, there's a level of calmness right now because a lot of people are actually expecting the results to start trickling in any moment from now, and that is where we are at this point. For now, that's the update that we have from Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital.
Okay, Dario,
back to you, Lagos.
The only other thing to ask is about security, because we do know that, when people begin to hear results, it can make people a bit more active than they normally would be. What sort of arrangements are you seeing there in terms of the security of the collation center where you are right now?
Yeah, Ijoma, I must tell you, sometimes it feels like this place is the most secured place in Nigeria at the moment. Almost every kind of force that you want to mention are present here at the INEC office. From the gate, you can see the policemen, the men of the DSS, name them, so many of them around. And of course, if that would be enough to secure a place, of course, you can say that the security of this place is really, really, really tight. So even from town, you can see the presence of even armed men, and by armed men, I mean security operatives. So it's been really, even from observers and every other person we've spoken to, people who traveled way far from where we are at the moment said everywhere is properly secured.
Dare, great to know you're safe and continue to be safe as those results begin to come in now. Dare there from Abeokuta in Ogun State. Now, like I always say, we shall expand the conversation once more, but we'll do that when we come back from this break.